This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Dorrinal, Brian Niemeier, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. That's right, Geek Gab, the once weekly geekerific talk show, bringing you the biggest, the baddest, the best geek talk around. How's your week been, Dorrinal?
Hey, it's been a good week, geekerific. Life is good, gaming's good. How about you, Brian?
Oh, it has been busy. Still working on the sequel to my novel, and had a bit of a social media explosion. One of my comments I left on Larry's site kind of blew up on Twitter and elsewhere, so I was kind of engaging with that. But it's good.
Is
No
that my
press is
fault?
bad. It is your fault, yes.
Okay.
You had my hopes up. I thought you had single-handedly saved modern civilization by literally exploding all of social media.
Alas, no.
What happened?
Oh, well, it's that thing that I mentioned to you guys in our discussion on Twitter for possible show topic. But since we're not going with that, I'll keep it quick. Like basically, Dr. Chuck Gannon, who ties into like both sci-fi and gaming because he co-wrote the original Traveler RPG, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know he was involved with Traveler, the only game where you can die many times in character gen. So, yeah, that kind of guy. Anyway, he had originally posted an open letter to like both the sad puppies and the anti-puppy sides of the Hugo controversy like a month ago. He ran into Larry DeCon. He asked Larry, hey, some people have basically dared me to repost this on your site. Can I do it? And Larry said, sure. So Larry reposted Chuck's letter, and it incited all kinds of controversy. And I didn't actually really go there with any intent on saying anything, but it was actually John Brown, who I believe is another author.
Yes.
He had a comment, and I like him. I mean, everything I've heard from John, I've really dug. I respect him a lot. And he was.
I read the first book of his trilogy. It's a decent book. I enjoyed it.
Servants of the Dark God, I believe.
Yeah.
I believe you folks out there can find it now on Amazon, by the way. So, a little plug for John to make up for what I'm about to say here. Because, he was saying, in effect, well, let's just forget the Hugos. Let's, leave the Chorfs to die on their own little hill, surrounded by a sea of fandom, and let's go found our own awards and just, cut our losses here, just ignore them. And I responded to him by saying, look, I was exactly where you are now a year ago. I mean, if our listeners want to track down the post, I'm sure you can find them over at Sci-Fi Right in my blog. I pretty much said that this, that Sad Puppy Stew is basically the nerds from the AV Club and the chess team trying to get in onto the cool kids table and meeting resistance. So let's just let them have their little table and let's go find our own better one, like outside on the patio or something. But the events of SP3, no, these people have to be stopped just because they will not be satisfied until only they exist. They're like locusts. They are bullies, and contrary to what Chuck and John were saying, they're not interested in amiable civil discourse, as evidenced by the fact that they posted outright libel in major media outlets like Entertainment Weekly and Popular Science, trying to just drag us through the mud. Their top editors and managing creative directors called us neo-Nazis, so no, you cannot play nice with people who are willing to stoop to that level. You've got to fight back.
I see.
But anyway, it seemed to resonate with quite a few SP and GG folks. So I appreciate the warm regards. I was sent over that, and I was just sharing my 2 cents.
And was there something going on with your book?
Oh, okay. Yes, it is right now on Amazon. The Kindle version of Ethereal is on sale for 99 cents. I'd originally planned just to run the promotion for this weekend only. It might come back later. I can't promise anything. So if you haven't bought it yet, get it while the getting's good. I was just talking with Jeff Dunteman, another Sad Puppy supporter and Gamergate supporter, and he's an old pro going way back. He has worn many hats, including author, technical author, editor, and even publisher. So he knows what he's talking about. He's been in the business since the 70s, and he's really digging Ethereal. He said it's surprisingly crisp and well written for a first novel. So don't just take my word for it. In his book, The Cunning Blood, is also available right now as well. I've got a link to it ready that I can put in the show notes or in the chat, and Warpig can hopefully put it in the show notes. So yeah, that's what's going on with me.
All right, and Dorrinal's news ties into the topic of the show, so we're gonna go with my news real quick. Those of you who've been listening to these podcasts since we restarted it know that I'm writing a memoir of the last year in Gamergate and Sad Puppies. The memoir is currently titled Daddy Warpig Goes to War. And I have just spoken with John C. Wright, the multi-Hugo nominated science fiction and fantasy author, who has agreed to be an alpha reader for the book.
Oh.
So he will read, along with my other alpha readers, the incomplete manuscript, and then give me feedback that I will use to revise the book going forward. As well, his wife, El Jaggy Lamplighter, is going to be alpha reading, and then I'm going to be hiring her as the editor once we get the final draft put together. And she's also putting me in contact with a good copy editor to do a copy editing pass on the final manuscript.
That is outstanding.
John C. Wright, who is, in my opinion, the best author of this generation, the best writer of this generation, is
way better than Brian Niemeier, anyway.
Yes, he is.
He's going to be alpha reading my book. So there it is.
Hey, that's great news.
Yeah, that is awesome news. And here's how awesome it is. He must really like you or really support the project, because he actually turned down my similar request for my book. But which I don't blame him for. I think it was actually because he was hard at work on his own then current novel. But congratulations. Yeah, Jaggie's going to do a great job for you. I guess our audience doesn't know. No, she's also my editor. So you're in good hands, sir.
So I was happy. That was a big, big boost this week.
Absolutely. And also, I know you'd asked for my help as a potential alpha beta reader, and I meant to tell you I'm making pretty good progress on the most recent revision of my book here. I don't know yet if I'll be free to alpha read your memoir, but I will probably be available to beta read it, or if you still need me to, I'm willing to make the time. So
once the manuscript is complete, I'm definitely looking for beta readers. So
yeah, just let me know if you still need my help.
Absolutely.
I'll do everything I can to see you succeed. So yeah.
So Dorrinal actually has two pieces of news this week. The first person is that a friend of his caused a riot on Facebook. Do I have that right?
Oh, it was just a small thing amongst friends, but he foolishly started a D&D edition war on his Facebook feed. I couldn't believe that those things still exist.
Oh, then you don't go to role-playing blog or role-playing forums, do you?
I learned long ago to stay away.
Yeah, edition wars are pretty much constant and have been since the beginning. So okay, but what was the edition war about? What was it he said that got people so upset?
Well, let's see here. Let me find the exact wording. I tend to agree with this, so that's why I'm actually going to bother with the wording. He says Pathfinder is probably better than D&D 3rd, 3.5, and 4th edition. I think D&D 5th edition is probably better than Pathfinder. They did a nice job. That's tough to disagree with. Wait, like, what are my experiences with those games? I actually grew up on 2nd edition. So when 3.0 came out, it took everything in 2nd edition, shook it out, and had it make sense, right? It was a wonderful revelation. But 5th edition, actually, a couple years ago, right before they released it, Daddy Warpig and I were at PAX with some family and friends, and we actually tried out the new 5th edition. And I'm not surprised to hear this opinion here.
And it's a rather common opinion among. See, that's why I'm kind of surprised it was sort of controversial, because it's a common opinion among many D&D people that Pathfinder is a tuned-up, improved version of 3.5 and 3.0, and then the 3.0 family are immensely better than the 4.0 family, but.
Well, I don't think that's fair either. I want to jump in there because I don't think that's fair, because if you compare them side by side, it's hard to. I mean, it's easy to say that 3.5 and everything else is better than 4th, but that's because you're actually comparing apples to oranges. I mean, I'm of the opinion that D&D 4th edition is a different game. It's just got the D&D brand on it. And so it doesn't do the same things that D&D 3.5 does.
Do you think if it had been paired with its own setting that the mechanics made sense with, and I'll put an asterisk there for later discussion, that it might have done good as its own game? That it might be loved as its own game and not as a version of D&D?
I think that the D&D brand helped with its popularity. I don't think it would have been as popular without the D&D brand in terms of player numbers and sales numbers, etc. The system itself, I just think what it does is a different thing from what D&D 3.5 and everything does. The way you write adventures for 4th edition is different than the way you write adventures for old school D&D or 3.5. So it's tough to say whether it would have been loved on its own. But I think all the people coming from old school style D&D going to 4th edition just picked it up and said, "What is this video game nonsense?"
See, and what I have heard, and I haven't played 4th edition extensively, and so anybody who had played it extensively or knows a lot about it could probably talk circles around me on this subject. But a couple of things I have heard about it make me wary, would make me think that it might have a tough time getting a lot of traction in role-playing because they are too board gamey, if I could use that. Like there's a special ability that allows you to trip something, and it's useful against everything, even things that you can't actually trip. And that is the sort of thing that game masters exist to do, is to apply rules correctly when the rules themselves do something nonsensical. But there seemed to be, from the discussions I've got, or the opinion from the people I've read, is that there were a quite large number of issues like that. And I think it's even Justin Alexander, whose website you were talking about 2 weeks ago, who wrote an article about dissociated mechanics and why he felt that was a big problem with 4th edition. So I admit, I mean, that's my problem when I'm talking about this, is I don't have a strong opinion because I am relying on the opinion of other people who may or may not be accurate.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of his most read articles on the site is about dissociated mechanics, and that's actually true.
Okay.
I mean, the D&D 4 was written for people who are coming from the sort of MMO video game space, and they wanted interesting mechanics that made for fun tactical battles, but weren't sufficiently grounded in the game world. I mean, the way I like to think of it is that when your decisions are your character's decisions, you are role playing. You are now finally in the role playing game.
Yes.
And yeah, fourth edition is kind of, it's meant for those people that don't mind the sort of board game experience of the video game experience. Although I would recommend, actually, they went ahead and just printed board games that are sort of D&D light. There's a bunch of different box sets. They've got great plastic monsters and really trimmed down simple rules.
And they're actually, you know, quite fun. As board games, they're really enjoyable. So.
Yeah, and it's sort of like it's a step down from fourth edition, which, you know, it has the same sort of feel.
What do you guys think of the observation that I've heard leveled quite a bit, saying that third ed is Magic the Gathering, the role-playing game, and fourth ed is World of Warcraft, the role-playing game?
I'm not sure where he's getting the comparison to Magic the Gathering from.
It was an early hit on 3.0 because one of the first things they mentioned was counterspelling. And so a lot of people, and this is like right when they were first barely talking about the mechanics that were going to go into 3.0. So we're talking like 16, 17 years ago. And a lot of people were upset because it was Wizards of the Coast and they had bought TSR and they were remaking D&D and they were going to make D&D just like Magic the Gathering so they could sell D&D to the Magic the Gathering crowd.
I'm still not seeing it.
No, I disagree. I don't think it's accurate, but that's where it came from.
Yeah, I mean, the comparison, fourth's comparison to World of Warcraft is spot on. All the characters are based on roles, and all characters have powers that let them act in that role, and those powers have cooldowns. You can only use a certain power once a day. You can only use a certain power once per encounter, that sort of thing. It was kind of a cool abstraction on top of like the spell system in older versions, but it had that video game feel to it.
Can I say this? Just off topic. I think a Magic the Gathering role-playing game would be really, really cool in concept, playing people who walk from plane to plane and then who link to different planes to summon creatures and effects and things like that. I think that would be awesome. The only problem is I don't see how you could do a traditional adventuring party in that setup. Like, planewalkers just don't seem like people who want share secrets and share information and team up to go do something.
Yeah, I think you've got the. I mean, that's one of the things that has made Magic so cool and popular, is that those cards evoke that other world. Like, you know, in the sets that are done well, you really feel like, you know, there's a cohesive, coherent world that you're playing in.
So, anyways, the other thing we wanted to talk about was your kind of obstacle you hit this week at your ongoing dungeon crawling game.
All right. You want to know how my game is going?
Yes.
So I ran into a couple of hiccups. The second week I actually only had one player. Which I've already learned my lesson from that. First of all, I didn't have anything prepared appropriate for a solo player, and which includes not having NPCs ready to go that he could like hire on to go into the dungeon by himself. But the following week was interesting because I just had 6 players, which was great. But I had one guy who'd never played D&D before. And as soon as he came in the door, I sat down with him, and we sort of powered through making his first character, which was great. It took a little bit of time, as you might imagine, but when we were finished, I realized that 2 other people who claimed to know the game or had familiarity with it weren't really finished with their characters. One guy, in fact, had barely started making his character. And this is like 45 minutes into our session. And so we lost more than an hour of the session just creating characters. And so that was the first big problem that we ran into in that session.
And you had a solution that made sense to me.
Yeah, I had some time to think about it. And what I want to do is I want to create more NPCs that are like first-level characters, so that if I ever have the situation where I have someone brand new to the game, I can just give them a pre-generated character, which is sort of obvious, right?
Yeah. What's the other problem you've been running into?
This is the big one. This is the interesting one. Maybe you guys can really help me out with this.
I promise nothing.
You're gonna come up with another good way for me to kill them?
Oh, if you want good ways to kill them, I mean, we have much to discuss. But go ahead, ask your question.
So, the people playing don't really have a leader on the team, and it seems to me that most of them, this is my judgment is that most of them aren't really sure how to do a role-playing game. And I don't mean the rules. I mean when I pause, when I say something like, for example, the session starts off with, okay, you guys are in town, you can buy anything that you need, you know where the dungeon is, you know how long it takes to get there, so whenever you're ready to go, you can go. So now that we're all in town, what do you want to do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get silence, I get questions, I get people trying to talk to each other in character. When nobody steps up and says something like, hey, all right, is everybody done? I mean, I could do something like this, like, is everybody done buying things? Okay, what do you do now? But even when I get there, it's like they don't know how to sort of take the game and run with it.
They don't have a lot of initiative.
Yes,
Exactly.
Initiative.
That is a motivation issue. In my experience, anytime you have the GM asking, okay, what do you do next? What are you doing? That's a sign that motivation among the players might be lacking. And it's happened to everybody. I mean, I find myself having to ask that, because sometimes you have to ask that. That is something... See, that's a circumstance where our play styles might differ. Oh, and by the way, quick correction. I'm not necessarily the one to talk to about how to more quickly and efficiently kill NPC or kill PCs. That might be Daddy Warpig. No. In my opinion, killing them is much too merciful. It's too quick and painless. Anyway, that might have been a bad way to preface this, but it's true. I still have one player that I actually did permanently psychologically scar with what I did to his player character's main love interest. Yeah, I know, people say that all the time. No, I actually did.
I would say this, as far as my theory of game mastering goes, it's not so much that I want to kill lots of player characters, is I want the players to be afraid that their characters are going to die. That their characters could die.
And that's a good motivation, actually. I mean, fear is a powerful motivator in life as in games. So this is actually a lesson that we can take from writing fiction, which is, what are the stakes? So Dorrinal, let me ask you, what is at stake for your merry band of adventurers?
I don't have anything.
Yeah, okay, there's a problem right there. And that's easy to fix. One thing I would do is, even if you're doing more of the traditional dungeon crawl, hack and slash, or more of a board game based campaign, have everybody just take a couple of minutes and come up with a basic background for his character. It could be simple job interview stuff, like, give me a goal statement for your character. Who's the character's family? Does the character have a significant other? A little something on the side. What does your character value? And then use that against them ruthlessly.
Chandler's Law, Raymond Chandler's Law, would also work here, but the difficulty with that is that players get kind of reliant on that, and that will get the session moving, but it won't necessarily solve their issue of motivation or initiative. And here is Raymond Chandler's Law. When in doubt, have a man come through a door with a gun in his hand.
Yes.
In other words, if the players have no idea what's going on, or have no idea what they want to do, and haven't settled on a goal for themselves, then you throw something at them that is big or small, and at the very least, it gets them to move away from it. To say, okay, we no longer maybe they'll get involved. Let's say you have a fight start. I'm not saying that's all you have to do. There's a lot of things that can happen. It doesn't have to be a fight. But let's say it's a fight. They can either run away from that fight, or get involved in the fight, or figure out what's going on, or whatever. It gives them something to react to. The problem is, yes, that does get players who don't have the initiative. It does give them something to do, and they will get right into it and start going and doing stuff. But then, very often, unless you really want to continually be doing that, it proves to be kind of a crutch for players. They get to expect that all the time, that they can just go someplace and not do anything, and bam, something interesting will happen around them.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Oh, that's good advice.
Yes, we've actually got some good advice in the chat here, where a fellow GM is sharing his experience. He had one game session where the players did nothing but shop in town. And he had to introduce NPCs to show them they could actually do other things. And he finally came to the conclusion it was because they're all used to GM hand-holding and RPGs. I assume he means like JRPGs and video games, where towns are always safe zones. Which is a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point, and that is how I'm treating my town. I definitely want... I want to move the action to the wilderness and the dungeon and everything, and for that reason I haven't prepared anything in town, which is one of the problems when I only had one player, because when he was there, I had nothing, ready for him.
Is there an organized group in the dungeon? Somebody the players can fight against as a group of bandits or whatever?
Yeah, there's a few factions in the dungeon.
Because what would be really interesting, and this is just an idea, is for that faction to follow them back to town, do them dirty in town, and then run back to the dungeon.
That could be interesting.
Because that would give them the initiative, that would give them the motivation to go back to the dungeon just because, something nice they like has been taken away, or they've been hurt, or whatever. And that gives them the chance to plot, to plan. It gives them a face to hate, to work against, that provides player characters. Players, I have found, are very often motivated by spite.
It's true.
That if a bad guy does something rude, that they will move heaven and earth to get him back, to avenge themselves. And so giving them a chance to avenge themselves on someone is an idea that might work, it might not. Like all D&D, like all role-playing game advice, it might work, it might not.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a tough. I might be able to pull that off, but I'm gonna have a tough one with that because I think they don't seem motivated to get revenge for the undead that killed half the party in the first adventure. I think they're just scared at this point.
Well, good. Use that. Seriously.
How would I use their fear? Or just use the undead monsters?
No, it's simple. What are they afraid of? Identify what they're afraid of, and place them between it and where you want them to go. Like the opposite pole of a magnet. And really, you might just be overthinking this. It could be a pretty simple fix. We won't know until you try, but yeah, like Daddy Warpig said, okay, if you've established your towns are safe zones, well, don't give them that comfort, you know. Have a dude with a gun, or perhaps in this case, like a really, really big sword come in. Have like some barbarians come in and like set fire to a couple homes, you know. Shake it up. Have some undead come in.
It could work. I'll do something like that.
Yeah, let us know. And then, honestly, getting back to what I was saying, so are they going to be listening to this? Because I don't want to spoil anything.
Don't be silly. Nobody listens to this show.
Okay, right. Just making sure that was still the case. So, okay, what is the objective of the dungeon? Are they just looking for treasure? Are they looking to eliminate a threat? What is the trail of breadcrumbs here?
It's treasure. The idea is that there's supposed to be artifacts or valuables or treasure in the dungeon because it's the ruins of a long lost empire.
Okay, sounds good. So what you need to come up with, and I would work with them on this, is a reason that each of their characters needs money. It could even be something like you have the king's representative write in and say, you gentlemen have not paid your imperial taxes this year. Here's the bill. If you don't pay it, then we're going to confiscate, your lands and sell your families into slavery. And that gives them a ticking clock. The taxes are due by a certain amount of time. And where are they going to get it quick? Hey, there's this dungeon over here. There's all kinds of money.
Nice.
That's off the top of my head. I just came up with that right now.
See, this is why I've always been the player, not the game master.
See, I have very often had players that were at least, even if they were motivated solely by personal gain, they were at least motivated by personal gain,
Yeah.
I don't know how you would play with players who just don't seem interested, because this is how I play. This is my thing. If we're sitting in town and nothing's going on, I get bored and start doing whatever I can think of to make things less boring. Like, we started playing Keep on the Borderlands, and for like 3 weeks we wandered around the wilderness and couldn't find anything. And I just said, well, screw this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to find what it is we're looking for. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. So I said, I looked at the world map, and I picked a point that was interesting to me on the opposite end of the world map, and I said, let's go there. I got the party together. We got organized, and we started walking all the way across. This was in Forgotten Realms, so I guess it's Faerun, just because I got bored. That's what I do. If I get bored, if we're not doing anything, I pick something to go do. I start asking questions. I'm like, really, what's that guard doing? Okay, do they have any bounties available in this town? Is this normal for this town? Who's in charge here? Because I play role-playing games to entertain myself. It's a hobby. It's a pastime. And just sitting there not doing anything just sounds incredibly boring.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, let me commend you, Daddy Warpig, because players like you are just my bread and butter. That is the gold standard. I'm fortunate enough to have one in my party right now, and exactly, his motto is, if there's nothing going on, I'm going to start something.
I was playing a Wookiee in a Star Wars game, and nothing was going on. We were just stuck on a ship, and the game master wasn't doing anything to move things forward, and nobody else was doing anything. So I went to this broken down junky cooking droid we had on the ship, and I started reprogramming it to do something else. This is in the Star Wars role-playing game, so it has one hand that's a fork, one hand that's a spoon, and its chest is a microwave. I mean, the cheesiest idea. But I just said, okay, my Wookiee, because I had the skill to do it. I said, my Wookiee wants to reprogram this as it was a game-playing droid or something that could deal cards and help us gamble, to do something interesting, because my Wookiee was bored.
Help you gamble? I mean, it's a computer. It'll help you gamble.
Well, I mean, not to win at gambling, but to deal the cards while we're playing on the ship, so that the rest of us could have a game and play games or something. Just anything. That's all I really was, just trying to come up with something interesting my character could do while I was waiting for everybody else to decide what it was we were waiting for. So yeah, that's the kind of player I am. Is I will do things even if they seem kind of off the wall, just because, well, I need something to happen here.
Yeah, and Dorrinal, as you're probably becoming aware of, yeah, players come in all different shapes and sizes and temperaments, and you can't count on everyone to take the initiative like Daddy Warpig. Some of them will need to be led around by the nose, and I think it has a lot to do with sort of the dichotomy among fiction readers. Like, there are some people who can only read litfic, they can only read realism. They will not give sci-fi or fantasy the time of day because they won't grant the writer that conceit, that little twist on reality. They just can't suspend their disbelief. Likewise, in role-playing games, there are some people who just don't understand, okay, you are in a freaking holodeck. You can do almost anything, but I don't know if their imaginations are just kind of withered or what, but yeah.
Here's another idea that might work. These people have gone into the dungeon, adventured, and come back and sold stuff they've gotten there, and they've spent the money that they've gotten there. So people in the town know they're adventurers and know they've gone to the dungeon and survived and come back. One thing you might do is prep up 2 quick outlines, one to do with, let's say, a small camp in the forest of something, some kind of monster, and then one to do with some group of bandits or thieves or rebels, poachers, whatever, who have fled into the dungeon to try and hide. And have someone in the town, the local constabulary or mayor or sheriff or whatever, go to the players and say, look, we've got 2 new bounties. We need these people taken care of. Do you want to go after the person in the forest and the camp, or do you want to go after the group who has fled into the dungeon you've already survived? And then give them the choice. You don't have to do that all the time, but you give them a motivation to leave the town and go do something. And you give them the choice to do what kind of adventure they want. And then you can build on whichever one they choose to go after.
Love it.
Okay, well, I don't want to burn you down right now with too many front-loaded pieces of advice. Just take what we've given you so far, see if you can come up with an actionable plan, and let us know how the results turn out. We can go from there.
It's a good thing I like RPGs, because you guys just made a shit ton more work for me this weekend.
Oh, we're showing you how the sausage is made, sir.
and just for that, I'm not going to have time to start on Ethereal, so there.
See,
I feel bad now.
I guess I'm kind of... I just do stuff like that off the top of my head and make it up as I go along. So that gives that... And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but that would just be like...
Oh.
You're not trying to brag or boast, but you happen to be the dungeon master with the most.
No, it's just a different style. You're a pantser. That's fine.
All right, well, we are actually over time, which is fine. Any last thoughts, Brian?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, as an addendum to my last statement, to Daddy Warpig, just, if you're going to fly by the seat of your pants, just make sure to take copious after-action notes for your reference next time. Same thing goes for all the GMs who like to run on the fly out there.
Or have better memories than your players.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Hey, thanks for all the advice and letting me talk out my problems. I love talking RPGs.
All right, this is Geek Gab, episode 28, with Dorrinal, Brian Niemeier, and me, Daddy Warpig, and we will be back.